Welcome into the Stokastic MMA strategy shows. We get you ready for Saturday's UFC Vegas number 57, of course, going from the UFC Apex, which means we are back in the smaller cage after last week's UFC Austin in the bigger cage, which I don't know, P, if you saw the addition of the stoppages, 17 minutes and all those stoppages at UFC Austin. So we'll get right back into the flow here with this one. But of course, as always, I'm joined by the Fire Pete Rogers Jr. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll talk about some of those Prize Picks plays later on in the show. Pete, how you doing, bro?
What's going on, man? Exciting main event. I'm really excited for the main event. I really like Tsarukyan. I really like Gamrot. Unfortunate that they have to clash so early within their careers, but it's going to be a hell of a fight, and I can't wait to see it over 5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing, and we'll get right into the main event of Tsarukyan and Gamrot. And to me, when I saw the salaries for this one and the betting odds, I thought it was a little wide, to be honest with you. I mean, look, Tsarukyan should be the favorite in this match. I'm not arguing with that one. But to me, the fact of him being this big of a favorite, being a 3-1 betting favorite, when you look over at DraftKings, 9,100, 7,100 for Gamrot. I'll tell you, in terms of cash games, I don't mind getting the Gamrot here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate getting to Gamrot at all anytime, especially over 5 rounds, because we could have a losing fighter within the optimal lineup. I think stylistically, it's a difficult matchup just because he's finally going to be met with a grappler that can compete with him and flow with him and defend some of his attempts. And he's the better striker. So Armin Tsarukyan is the better striker on the feet. And it's just going to be a difficult matchup for Mateusz Gamrot, but man, that relentless pace and just the consistent attempts to take the fight to the mat. I don't hate the price point on Gamrot at 7,100, even though he doesn't necessarily have the best top control. I mean, if he gets somebody down with an excellent takedown, as he did against Jeremy Stevens, you saw what he can do in the submission department. But other fighters have been able to work back to their feet, and I feel like Armin Tsarukyan has the wrestling skills to do so. So I agree with you. The odds are a little wide, but I think that they are correct in Tsarukyan's favor.
Yeah, when you look at the stats of this one, the thing that I think sticks out to me the most would be when you look at those takedowns per 15 minutes of fighting, where Gamrot is at a 5.83, 3.47 on the reverse side for Tsarukyan. Now, Gamrot has not been taken down in UFC competition, but that takedown defense for the most part has held up for Tsarukyan. It's one of those fights just because of I kind of feel like it's going to play out on the feet. It's going to be one of those fights that I think in cash is going to be hard to get away from, because I do think the winner of this fight is going to score pretty well in that. In terms of GPPs, I mean, look, we've got 12 fights to deal with. We got some high volatility fights, like we'll play the game later on in the show. Who do you trust more, Josh Parisian or Alan Baudot? I don't know who you trust more, but there's some volatility throughout this fight card. So in GPPs, I don't know if I have to get to the main event, but I think in terms of cash games, it's going to be hard for me to avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with getting to Armin Tsarukyan, honestly. You're not going to see him go offensive takedowns as much as he normally would in certain matchups. I think he's going to want to use his takedown defense, keep it on the feet, and look for a striking finish or just a dominant stamp towards each round. 9,100, it's not like he's priced at the high 9 range, so I'm okay with getting to it just because of the 5 rounds and the pace that Mateusz Gamrot, fights at, and the way that he's just constantly working. Armin Tsarukyan is going to have to keep up. If he doesn't keep up, then you could see the underdog coming through at an excellent price tag of 7,100. So I feel like the pace might elevate both of their totals. So for me, I'm probably going to be getting to the main event. Honestly, I feel a little nervous not getting to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things when it comes to the betting odds of, if you sat there and said these guys fight 10 times, does Tsarukyan win 6, 7 out of the 10 times?
I would think so. Anything can happen, and especially in this fight game, we know that. As long as Tsarukyan took Mateusz Gamrot serious and comes in fantastic shape, he hasn't really been tested inside 5 rounds ever within his career, whereas Mateusz Gamrot has. So Gamrot has that championship experience and dealing with the 5 rounds in the past. I feel like he kind of overexerts himself, though. Like, I can see this guy, his cardio not being the best in rounds 4 and rounds 5, just because of the the defensive skills of Arman Tsarukyan, just defending takedowns. It's exhausting when you don't land takedowns and you're constantly working. So the 5-round nature is an interesting bit where I don't know who it necessarily favors, but of course I'm going to be favoring Arman Tsarukyan. I just think that he's the more well-rounded athlete. Mateusz Gamrot's pretty reckless and wild on the feet. So anything can land, anything can happen. So I would agree with you that 7 out of 10 times Tsarukyan comes out as the victorious fighter.
Of course, this is the strategy show for UFC Vegas number 57. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel right here on YouTube so you keep up with all of our shows, DFF offers, giveaways, and so much more. Of course, once you subscribe, you got to hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Of course, come up here later on today, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We got MLB live before lock. And of course, if you're not a premium member, you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, today's free premium day and tools is MLB projections. You got to go over there to check that out. Of course, you've noticed that we have rebranded as Stokastic instead of Osimo, but that just because the brand has changed doesn't mean anything else has. The content, tools, data 100% is the same. The Osimo Alex Baker isn't going anywhere, and he's not changing his DFS username to Stokastic. We haven't merged or been acquired. This is simply a brand shift, and everything else you've grown to love about our channel website is 100% not changed. You got to check out all the tools we have over there. I'll tell you about a great offer we have here in a little bit. And of course, right here on the left side of my screen, I've got that top fighter tool. That is the tool that I am using for all of these. And I'll give you a little hit. I've got a spreadsheet. I've got a top fire tool for DraftKings. I got the top fire tool for FanDuel. And then I go over to UFCstats.com and I pull all the stats on these fights, because that's sometimes how you can try to create a little bit of edge for yourself, especially, or talk about the DraftKings side of the equation of who could potentially take the fight to the ground. And maybe we talk about that here in the co-main event of Neil Magny and Shakov Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov, 9,300, 6,900 for Neil Magny. Of course, we do not have the FanDuel salaries at this time. Rakhmonov just over a 4-1 betting favorite in this one. And, one of the things that, Pete, we always talk about with Neil Magny, especially with at welterweight here, is a reach advantage that he typically has, but this is one of the ones where he doesn't have a sizable reach advantage. He does have a 3 reach advantage against Rakhmonov. Look, I think Rakhmonov is the real deal. To me, this is the test. This is the test to figure out, are you a part of this top 8-ish of the UFC welterweight division? And the question for me is, if you're Neil Magny, do you engage in the grappling in this one?
I will tell you, I am really excited to see Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, and Neil Magny is an excellent test for him, as you just mentioned. Usually a huge guy for the division, hits people with really long straight punches, and the volume tends to be too much for a lot of his opposition. And then when the striking isn't in his favor, he works his way into the clinch, and he has some sneaky wrestling upside offensively. Not a good defensive wrestler by any means. And I think that's probably going to be the game plan is, avoid the big shots of Shavkat Rakhmonov, who has such diverse striking. It's crazy. He can throw spinning hook kicks. He has good power, excellent submission skills as well. So Neil Magny needs to look to utilize like upper body takedowns, like getting high underhooks and looking to trip him inside the clinch. Going for a traditional double leg is not a recipe for success against Shavkat Rakhmonov. He has an excellent guillotine. And I do think that Shavkat is the real deal. Now, the price tag is just interesting because 9,300 going up against easily his stiffest test to date. Magny has taken a ton of damage throughout his career, and I worry about his chin, truthfully. I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov can look to exploit that, hit him, damage him on the feet, maybe knock him down. Could even knock him down multiple times. We see Magny get hurt and rocked just in his most recent fight against Max Griffin. And then he was able to overcome that and get a split decision victory. But you tell me that you're having a really close fight with Max Griffin, and now they're pairing you up against Shavkat Rakhmonov, one of the best prospects within the sport. I just think that Shavkat has the goods in all areas here. And I think the price tag's warranted at 9,300, and he has some finish upside. So I'm okay with getting to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you mentioned, I think Rakhmonov is the real deal, but let's also be honest about this, this is a massive step up in competition from his last opponent in Carlson Harris. Now, he does have a win against Cowboy Oliveira. One of the things that I'm interested to see, because when you look up and down the record, especially most recently, we really haven't seen Rakhmonov get extended out to the third round. That, to me, if I'm thinking about what Neil Magny's potential game plan could be in this matchup, is to potentially test that cardio machine and see what does a third round Rakhmonov look like.
Yeah, I mean, anytime somebody's such a prolific finisher, you want to test them in the later rounds, but good luck avoiding, that crazy offensive onslaught that they're trying to hit you with, whether it's submission attempts or just ridiculous striking. And a lot of people haven't been able to survive what Shavkat brings to the table. And Magny has the experience to basically develop a game plan around Shavkat Rakhmonov. But I just don't know if the durability is there at this stage of the game. The price tag's obviously intriguing, right? Like 6,900, if he does somehow squeak this out and makes it a competitive fight, obviously he's going to be optimal at that price tag. Even in a loss, this could be a situation where Magny, rises to the occasion and has just like a career best performance. But I'm really not seeing it in 2022. So Shavkat Rakhmonov, 9,300, no problem.
Next up, we've got a heavyweight matchup, and this one's got high volatility written all over it. Essentially, it's a pick'em fight here between Baudot and Josh Parisian. Who do you trust more, Pete, here? Because I don't know who to trust. I mean, like, if you hold a gun in my head and say you got to pick one, I probably pick Josh Parisian. But man, this is it's the low end of the UFC heavyweight division.
Yeah, I mean, I would just accept my fate in a situation like that and just hope for the best. But Alain Baudot, Josh Parisian is this week's Joe Lozon, Cowboy Cerrone. Like, Joe Lozon and Cowboy Cerrone were not the same fighters that they used to be. So it was an extremely volatile matchup. Obviously, that fight was scrapped a second time, which is completely crazy. But Alain Baudot, Josh Parisian is probably going to make it into a group of mine, to be honest, because I really like the under 2.5 in this fight. Alain Baudot has a ton of question marks surrounding him. He's winless inside the UFC. Josh Parisian has tons of question marks surrounding him as well. We've seen him have more success than Alain Baudot, even on the Contender Series and just getting in top position. He can land some good ground and pound, but on the flip side of that, he can be put in terrible positions and beaten to a pulp as well. It's a lean towards the underdog just because it's a value play, and under 8,000 is always going to have my eyes open. And I'm going to just lean towards Josh Parisian, but this is probably going to make it into the optimal lineup. And I have literally no trust in either one of them. So if anybody says Alain Baudot is going to go out there and knock out Josh Parisian, I can see it. I can see anything that you want to tell me about this fight. And Alain Baudot did look ever improved in his last bout against Parker Porter. He lost a decision, but he did look like a guy that, put in some work in training camp. He looked improved. And Josh Parisian looked absolutely terrible in his last bout against Dontel Mays. So it's a clash of styles and a clash of horrific low-level heavyweights. And we will have to, just sit on the edge of the couch and hope that we have the correct exposure to one of these guys.
I do wonder if Josh Parisian's potential game plan would be to utilize takedowns. We've seen him use it very, not frequently at all. When you look at his takedowns per minute rate, a 0.31. Of course, both these guys, while they both land, right around that 5 strikes per minute, they also absorb about 5 strikes per minute as well. This is one of those ones that, for me personally, it's on the I know I got a roster at Pete, but you just don't. It's just a fight that you don't have a ton of trust in. Before we move on to the next matchup, do let you know about the great offer we have for if you're a new user of Stokastic Plus Platinum, where you can get 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. This is for new users only. You can hit the link in the video description below, or use that promo code MMA Strategy Show to get access to all the great tools and content we have over at stokastic.com. And look, when you hit that promo code, that lets everyone here know that you heard about the offer that we have right here on the MMA Strategy Show. Appreciate everyone taking advantage of that promo code. And look, it's that top fighter tool, which gives you everything you need here for UFC. Of course, also everything else we have over Stokastic.com if you're looking for MLB coverage. Of course, we got NASCAR returning this weekend, so be sure to check out that. And I'll tell you, when it comes to that top fighter tool, there's a lot of things that I'm looking at. Obviously, ownership is a big part of that equation. Where can we potentially get some leverage at, especially when we're talking about some of these high volatility fights of where we're thinking ownership is going to be in that, but be sure to take advantage of that deal. New users only, 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You got to take advantage of that deal. Let's move on. Next up, we got a matchup. We teach Giagos Moises and Christos Giagos. Of course, Christos Giagos now training down in South Florida. This is now his second training camp in South Florida. He is 7,200, 9,000 for Giagos here. And, look, I mean, the one thing that always concerns you on looking at the Giagos side of the equation, first off, is the fact of the cardio. You know that he is going to be potentially live for a stoppage early on in this fight. But to me, once you tell me this fight hits minute 7.5, I do feel like it's advanced Giagos.
Yeah, I mean, I like the skills of both guys to a point, but there was a time where I thought Giagos Moises was a fraud. I truthfully did. And then he went on a nice little win streak over Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, and Alexander Hernandez. And I was like, okay, my assessment was wrong. To see him with a 9,000 price tag, I understand that he's fought top level competition, losing most recently to Joel Alvarez in the first round. That was a brutal finish. And then previous to that against Islam Makhachev, he's fought top competition. So I understand it. And Christos Giagos is a guy who's so dangerous in round one, but his best path to victory tends to be getting takedowns and looking for submission finishes. And honestly, I just don't love that game plan for him against Giagos Moises. Moises has great Brazilian jiu-jitsu and some, underrated striking as well. It's his volume that is sometimes lackluster and makes you sit there, stare at the TV and be like, do something, like let your hands go, let your combinations fly. Because when he does, he looks so talented and he looks crisp. I'm going to sprinkle the underdog Christos Giagos just because of, the camp, Sanford MMA. I know that Giagos Moises comes from a strong camp, American Top Team as well, but I just feel like the salaries are a little wide. I am favoring Giagos Moises, and he should be able to take over late, as you mentioned, just weather the storm from Christos and go out there and outwork him in rounds 2 and rounds 3. It's just Giagos at this stage in the game with the damage he's taken in his past 2 fights and being on a losing skid. How does he rebound from that? We know that Christos is coming off a vicious finish defeat against Arman Tsarukyan. So, I mean, I'm interested in the fight. I didn't suspect Giagos to have a 9,000 price tag. I'm okay with it, but I feel like it's just a tiny bit wide. So the pick for me is going to be Giagos Moises, and Christos Giagos is going to be a long shot guy that I'm going to be sprinkling some of my lineups.
I don't see myself getting to this fight in GPPs. By the way, speaking of Christos now trained down there at Sanford MMA, I heard a hilarious story about his first day. He walks into Sanford MMA. Who's the first person he sees? Sean Soriano, who he had just submitted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had to have known, Sean's a staple within that team and one of the best striking minds down there. So, I like it when guys pair up after defeats, as long as you can learn something from everybody. And Sanford's a great camp, but so is, American Top Team, Giagos Moises, dealing with excellent bodies on a day-to-day basis. And we'll have to see clash of styles, but Giagos Moises 9,000 price tag. I'll have to see how ownership is, but I might be neutral to it, or if people are really smashing it, I might take an under approach.
Of course, when you talk about high price tags, we got to move on next up to the highest salary fighter on this card, Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Nate Maness. He is 9,500 on DraftKings, 6,700 for Nate Maness, and Umar is now a 9-1 betting favorite in this one. He was an 8-1 betting favorite earlier on this week. And look, when you talk to people who are around American Kickboxing Academy, who are around the stable of fighters that Habib is working with on the day in and day out, outside of Islam Makhachev, the fighter that everyone points to and says, this is the guy, this is the next protege of Khabib Nurmagomedov, it is Umar. But when you look at the stats on this one, Pete, the one stat that sticks out above all else is those takedowns per 15 minutes of fighting, 7.56. Look, Umar, no question, clearly should be the favorite in this one. Once again, I think the line is a little wide. I think he's going to win this one. But to me, it comes down to does he pay off that price point?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Umar Nurmagomedov a lot. I love his kicks. He has excellent kicks. And when he gets you thinking about the kicks or just his striking in general, he can mix in some takedowns. And within the UFC, we've seen him do it, but I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of his potential. He went 5 of 11 for takedowns against Sergey Morozov and 1 of 5 against Brian Kelleher. But he has excellent submission skills as well. So I really think that this kid has the goods. And I have to be honest, Nate Maness just needs to stop, because I think I've bet against him in every single fight. Like I've constantly counted this guy out, and he just keeps screwing me over. So hopefully that ends this week, and we have Umar Nurmagomedov going there with a dominant performance, whether he gets the finish or not. I just want, Maness to get the L that I have been predicting for a very long time. I mean, it's a really difficult matchup for him, and he's bailed himself out from the Tony Gravely fight where he was damn near stopped, but he also possesses some pretty good power. The submission win over Luke Sanders, you know what I mean? Like he's dangerous late. And if you tax your gas tank, or if you don't really get him out of there, then he's live to pull the upset. But I absolutely do not see it this week against Umar Nurmagomedov. I will be getting to Umar, no problem at all. 9,500 price tag, going to scare some people naturally, but you're talking about one of the best skill sets within the UFC. Yeah, he's young. He's a young prospect, but as I thought Thiago Moises was a fraud in the past, Nate Maness was atop the fraud list for me. And I was like, yeah, this guy's completely, I don't even think he's UFC level. And then now he has 3 UFC wins. So I think the defeat's finally coming, and Umar, 9,500 price tag, going to be a smash play.
I do know that Nate once has been wanting to fight Adrian Yanez. Look, you lose here, you're not getting Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez is on a different path right now. But I mean, look, Nurmagomedov, I mean, he's the real deal in this one. I mean, when you constantly hear people rave about a certain fighter, you kind of know that there's a lot of legit there. And I like him in this matchup, but I would say this, man, the price point is a little scary to me in this one. Just kind of looking at ownership right now, I will definitely be under the field in terms of that one. Let's move on to the next matchup. I kind of feel like we might have a good little conversation here between Chris Curtis and Rodolfo Vieira. Of course, everyone knows about Rodolfo with his jiu-jitsu credentials, and of course, the action man he has come in for us. But unlike his previous UFC fights, Pete, here, we've got minus money now on Chris Curtis, as he is the betting favorite in this one. 8,600 for Chris Curtis, 7,600 for Rodolfo. I mean, look, I like Chris Curtis in this matchup, but there is a clear path to victory. When you have seen Chris Curtis struggle, it's when he has been taken and putting on his back. Now, look, for a lot of times, BJJ guys, how often do we talk about here, Pete? That BJJ guys may not have the best takedowns, but like that is the clear method for Rodolfo to pull this upset here.
Yeah, so I mean, Chris Curtis, Rodolfo Vieira, exciting middleweight matchup. I can't wait, because I really like Chris Curtis. And Rodolfo Vieira is a guy where in certain matchups we can target him. He's always live to get a submission finish, as he has done in his 3 UFC wins. But when he's unable to have success in the grappling department, especially getting somebody to the mat, because he's not an incredible wrestler, he's an incredible grappler. And that's the issue that people don't really understand, is like a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners don't round out their game and work on that wrestling as much as they should. You have seen some fighters like, that go out there and they start to incorporate wrestling, and it's like, okay, now they're a true threat. I think that Rodolfo Vieira is an underdog to target, just because if he wins, he scores well. But I don't foresee him beating Chris Curtis here. I think Chris Curtis is going to beat him up on the feet. Rodolfo Vieira is going to get tired as this fight goes on. And even if he gets a takedown, I think Chris Curtis is experienced enough to defend, get back to his feet, or in the next round or two, start to really implement his game and hurt Rodolfo Vieira on the feet. And it's every time Rodolfo is going to fight, I'm always going to think back to that Anthony Hernandez fight. When the going got tough, you did see him somewhat mentally check out. The takedowns weren't there. He was lunging a lot on his shots and overextending himself and just putting himself in harm's way, where Anthony Hernandez snatched up the neck and got a beautiful, beautiful submission. So Chris Curtis is the play for me at 8,600. And I think that he wins 8 of 10 times, if you want me to be honest. But as far as underdogs who could score well, Rodolfo Vieira, if he wins, he's going to score well.
I just kind of feel like this fight early on is going to play out a little bit of a feeling out process by Chris. I got to imagine that his team is going to go back and look at that Hernandez fight and go, if we can wear this guy down, this is going to be, Pete, you coach fighters every single day. One of the things that anytime you talk to a coach, one of the things I always talk about is, what is the best path to victory? What is the easiest path to victory? It's like, if you're just using you as a perspective, you're a karate guy. And if I'm coaching, I'm not sitting there going, hey, Pete, we're just double legging this whole fight. No, right. Like, you are what you are. And like, I feel like with Chris Curtis, the fact is we know what he is. He is a stand-up fighter. This is a guy who has taken boxing matchups. So I think that's going to be part of the process. I mean, look, I certainly could be very wrong. And maybe Chris Curtis just comes out, throwing them bungalows, but I feel like he's going to try to wear out Vieira in this matchup.
Yeah, I think, popping with the jab and utilizing good footwork is what's going to be like. He needs to be the matador, while Rodolfo Vieira is going to be the bull early on, because Rodolfo is going to be swinging big, trying to get you to respect his hands, just to shoot underneath you and pin you to the cage and work towards taking you to the mat. So I mean, Chris Curtis trains with some of the best fighters in the world, and he has some of the most experience within the UFC, but it was all regional experience. I think that Rodolfo Vieira can get exposed in a matchup like this against such a veteran. So give me Chris Curtis.
One of the things that potentially we could see on Fight Night, Pete, is a size difference between these two. I think Chris Curtis is better off at 170 as opposed to 185. But I mean, look, hey, you're not kind of trying to wait to get to 185, so can't blame in terms of that one. Now, when we talk about Chris Curtis, he is actually one of the prop plays I like over at our sponsor, Prize Picks. Of course, they got their daily prop-based contest, and of course, when you use that promo code AWESOMO, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Of course, use your knowledge on multiple sports with cross-sport entries. Click the link in the video description below or head to prizepicks.com. Of course, they got the app you got there as well. They've always got specials going on over there. I love playing on Prize Picks, and I've been sitting here waiting for Prize Picks to throw some PFL lines from me, because I'm going to be hopping on some of those PFL lines. But Chris Curtis, his fight time number, Pete, is 6.0. I like the over in this one. I know you're not huge on the over on this one, but I like the over just because I think it's with the stoppage is not going to come till after the 6-minute mark.
I don't hate it. I think that anybody who fights Rodolfo Vieira is going to have to weather the storm. So Rodolfo could have early success, and then rounds 2 and rounds 3 is the most live for Chris Curtis to get the finish. So I feel like it's close to where I would see it, and I'm okay with getting to the over, but there's the next one that I prefer, truthfully.
Yeah, I said this one to you. You kind of text me like, yeah, I kind of like that second one a little better. And I like this one as well. It's going to be a fight that we haven't talked about yet, and that's Mario Bautista taking on Brian Kelleher. Mario Bautista, I like the significant strikes landed here of 68.5. And give me the over here. When you look at when Bautista has been stretched out into the third round, this is a number that he is typically hit. So I like the over 68.5 significant strikes of Mario Bautista.
Yeah, I'm excited for that fight. Kelleher is really, really tough. Hopefully the weight cut doesn't tax him too much, but his toughness has prevailed for the majority of his career. And I see it playing out on the feet for a large majority of it, with Bautista just kind of dancing around and doing what he does. So I think that significant strike total is pretty low.
Also, I think another one to look at, it mention here, Alan Baudot under 10 fight time minutes is probably another one to potentially target there. And if Prize Picks, I know they had him up last week on a PFL, this is my just easy explanation with PFL. go look at the standings and see who needs stoppage wins. For example, if they put a fight time up on Anthony Pettis and Stevie Ray tomorrow, Stevie Ray has to win via stoppage by the 2-minute and 51-second mark of the third round to get into the playoffs. Those are things you got to be looking for. Of course, Jeremy Stevens was a core play for me over on Prize Picks last week. And, well, combinations, Jeremy. Combinations, man.
Yep. I can't wait for the lines to drop and me to see them and do some research on PFL, because it's fun that, other platforms are starting to get into MMA more so than it was a couple of years ago. And we're starting to see fans really enjoying MMA fights. So happy to have you guys a part of the show, checking out the show. If you like what we bring to the table, if you guys can hit that like button, get us over like 100 likes, we'd really appreciate it. And we're here every single week.
Look, if you could put some fight time props up on the Bellator card, in what I like to call the human sacrifice hour on the preliminary card, I was smashing under.
Yeah, that would be some free money over on Bellator sometimes.
Are you going to the fights tomorrow night?
I am. I just got tickets, so I will be there after I'm having a new mat delivered to our gym, and then teaching class, and then I'll be at the fights to watch my guy Brendan Ward fight. And he's been coming down to the gym, putting in some work with me and the guys. And shout out to Brendan. He's an awesome asset to the team, and we're happy to have him.
Man, are you going to put on some weight with all these big boys that are coming to your gym, or what?
I have no idea. I'll tell you what. I'm either going to be the strongest 155 pounder out there, or the most injured. The more I keep working with everybody. I had 3 heavyweights come in and join the gym yesterday. It's like Connecticut's a heavyweight hotspot. I got nothing but big guys. I'm like, yo, like it's good. It's good for me in the strength department, but it's like, goodness gracious.
I heard some rumblings that Mohegan Sun is going to be pretty packed tomorrow night.
Yeah, I heard the same.
I'll tell you some stuff off air. Okay. But let's move on to the next matchup. And this may be, I think, one of the matchups that maybe interests people the most, just in terms of the actual fight of Ulberg and Nchukwi. 8,300 for Carlos Ulberg, 7,900 for Nchukwi here. This is one that I think, could be a very fun fight to watch here. Both guys, high volume strikers. Yeah, and highly skilled strikers too. And Nchukwi is a guy that I was fine getting to as an underdog against Azamat Murzakanov. And up until the flying knee knockout in the third round, he was doing great. He was outlanding Murzakanov, looking strong, looking good. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And I've never really had to question his durability. Can't still question his durability. He got hit with a flying knee. There aren't too many human beings that get hit with a flying knee and walk it off. So the skills are what I can believe in. And he's a very good Muay Thai striker. And he has some takedowns in his back pocket, where I feel like Carlos Ulberg doesn't necessarily have the same. Yeah, he landed 2 against Fabio Cherant. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people thought that Ulberg was going to get rid of Fabio pretty quickly, and that went the distance. So I know it was a patient win, but the fact that he didn't get rid of Fabio in that matchup doesn't necessarily make me think that he's going to get rid of Nchukwi, despite coming off a knockout defeat. And now, I don't like how the knockout was back in March. I don't like that it was 3 months ago. I always like fighters to take, some long time off to let their brains heal. And despite feeling well and feeling like you can go out there and compete, you're not healed. You need to take more time off and just come back like Calvin Kattar did against Max Holloway. Took some time away and then came back when he was better. I'm still going to think that this fight plays out on the feet, unless Nchukwi really wants to mix in some takedowns by, getting in tight and tripping Ulberg to the mat. The volume is crazy for both of these guys. And I know that's what you were alluding to, where you have Ulberg via UFC stats, 8.76 strikes landed per minute, Nchukwi 6.12. They both love the strike. I feel like it's going to be a methodical performance from either one of these guys. I'm going to lean towards Nchukwi, despite coming off a knockout defeat. I like Tafon, and he has more experience on Dana White's Contender Series and just in the UFC in general. He's fought Jamie Pickett, Jung Young Park, Michael Rodriguez, Azamat Murzakanov, where if you look at Ulberg's strength of schedule, it's Kennedy Nchukwi and Fabio Cherant. So it's a lean towards Nchukwi,
but I can't wait. It's a striker's delight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things. I mean, and I mentioned about 8.76, 6.12 on the other side in terms of strikes land per minute. Now we look at strikes absorbed per minute. Carlos 4.02, 3.87 for Nchukwi on the other side of the fight. And look, if this fight hits the ground, it's likely because someone's been dropped or someone has been rocked and they need to, they need to recover a little bit.
Yeah, and it's and if somebody gets hurt, that's when you can see a striker turn into a wrestler too. It's like, all right, well, like, I love striking, but man, you feel weak in the clinch and I'm going to look to exploit you there, or just being opportunistic grapplers. That's what you want. You want well-rounded mixed martial artists out there. And I feel like Nchukwi is the more well-rounded of the two. So that's why I'm going to be leaning in his favor.
We always talk about the fact of MMA DFS can be a very tough sport to forecast. And you bring up a great point there of where you can have a game plan going into a matchup. And all of a sudden, and let's just say, this matchup as an example of it, where both corners are sitting there saying, you know what, this is going to be a kickboxing matchup. And all of a sudden, we're 2 minutes into the fight and mentioned about we're in the smaller cage. We're in the 25-footer, not the 30-footer. And all of a sudden, it's a fight that ends up in the clinch against the fence. And one of these guys just goes, oh, crap. I can ragdoll this dude. I can take him to the ground. That's the part of why forecasting how an MMA fight can go can be difficult, because there's certain factors we just don't know.
Yeah. And if you're, just living by the data, dying by the data, you're going to have a very difficult time with MMA DFS and predicting what should happen. Because a lot of times in MMA, what should happen does not happen. And you have upsets, you have injuries, you have crazy shots just landing like one-shot punches. And it's crazy to forecast, as you mentioned. And that's where I feel like if you're struggling with MMA DFS, live betting is probably your next best bet. And live betting to see, okay, well, man, Nchukwi is really dominating him in the clinch. And the odds necessarily haven't favored him yet. So I'm going to start to take a stand on him, because I can see how this is going to go. And I can see the game plan of Nchukwi is actually working a little bit better than what I predicted pre-fight. So, it's just kind of like evolving. All fighters are evolving and they're trying to be well-rounded mixed martial artists, and being opportunistic is the most important thing in an MMA fight.
Yeah, if you live in a state where you can live bet, you got to take advantage of that. I mean, obviously here in Florida, we're going through the legislative aspect. Again, we had sports betting for like, I don't know, a month, and then it went away. But that was one of the things that it was under the Seminole Hard Rock Casino that they did not have live betting. And that was kind of the unfortunate aspect, because in terms of MMA, that is really a great way that you can get an edge, particularly when you start to see a fight turn around. I mean, how many times have we seen a fight where a fighter just, a fight that comes to my mind just because I just saw a message about how he's no longer a UFC fighter, Timur Valiev, when he took on Trevin Jones. I mean, he absolutely is steamrolling Trevin Jones in the first round. If you would have live bet Jones in the second round, you would have made yourself a ton of money. I mean, that's just the way this sport works. Yeah,
I mean, that would have been a crazy call, because it did not look good for Trevin Jones in that matchup at all.
No, it did not look very good. Let's move over to the next one. We got TJ Brown, who he's going to have a very unique corner in this one, as, of course, he splits his time in Arkansas and in Missouri. So he'll have James Krause and Bryce Mitchell in his corner for this one. He is a relatively decent-sized favorite. He is over a 2-1 betting favorite in this one. He is a 8,900 fighter here, taking on Shailen. Not going to try to butcher that last name, because I know I will. I gotta go over to the UFC media website. I gotta listen to that audio file and see if I can get that proper pronunciation down before on Saturday, which, by the way, my buddy Pete will not be here on Saturday, as he'll be doing his coaching duties with one of his fighters there. And Greg Ehrenberg will be joining me here on Saturday. But TJ Brown, 8,900 over on DraftKings. Why does he just scare me?
Yeah, he feels bad. He feels bad as a minus 200 favorite sitting there at 8,900. I like TJ Brown, but as such a massive favorite, you have to have your concerns, because the skills are there, and he looked great in his debut against Jordan Griffin. He's one of the very few fighters that in 2 rounds scored 73 fantasy points and lost. 73 fantasy points and lost because he got caught in a submission against Jordan Griffin. So, I mean, his striking is improving under the tutelage of James Krause, of course, but it's the wrestling where he went 7 of 7 takedowns against Jordan Griffin in his debut that really got him the crazy points. In his second fight in the UFC, he went 0 of 6, 2 of 4 against Kai Kamaka, and 6 of 8 against Charles Rosa. So usually he is the fighter that likes to impose his will on the mat and get top position, land some takedowns. I feel like he might struggle a little bit in that department because Shah Yalan is a good wrestler in his own right, very good wrestler in his own right, and likes to get takedowns and get in top position and has good control time. He had 7 minutes of control time against Sean Soriano. And I know Sean works on his takedown defense a lot at Sanford MMA, but that's his Achilles heel and always has been throughout his career. So I'm interested to see these 2 wrestlers clash. If TJ Brown is able to nullify the attempts of Shah Yalan, then I think he could pick him apart on the feet with some leg kicks and just some big shots as well, because the striking offense of Shah Yalan is pretty underwhelming. Despite the nervous energy surrounding the 8,900 price tag, I got to lean in TJ Brown's favor. I'm going to be picking him to win here. And I feel like we haven't seen the best of him yet. He looked good against Kai Kamaka. He looked good against Charles Rosa, where he scored 112 fantasy points. And I'm hoping that he can keep this momentum going against Shah Yalan and get another victory in the cage.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a fight that you have to look at in terms of GPPs just because of the fighting style there. By the way, actually, speaking of Charles Rosa here later on today, I got a couple interviews talking to my guy, Billy Quarantillo. We live like 10 minutes away from each other, but we'll be connected virtually to do the interview here. He's actually just got back into Tampa. He's a part of that July 16th card in Long Island. That's the card that's on ABC. Pete, by the way, mark your calendar July 16th. That's like a 12 o'clock lock time that day.
Oh, nice. I like that. I love those early times.
Oh man, I was talking about my podcast last night. Like, I'm jealous of people who live on the West Coast that get to watch afternoon MMA like all the time.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, I used to love it when they had cards in like England or wherever, and it'd be like morning cards, and you wake up early in the morning, and I'd be going to work in the morning, and I'm sitting there as I'm prepping and all that. I'm like, man, this is great. You get fights early on while you're drinking Dunkin'. It's great.
I remember back when I was more of a beat reporter in terms of MMA.
Yeah.
And they were doing a show over in China. And I think the fight started like 3 a.m. So I literally woke up at 2:30 in the morning to cover fights.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I have done that as well. And I was not a reporter. It was just a passionate fan over here just watching. So if you guys have watched cards at all hours of the day, or, you're studying tape for yourself, shout out to you.
I will tell you, one of the times I was at a Bellator event, the fights ended like midnight, 1 a.m. I'm working in the back of the Mohegan Sun Arena as like I'm editing videos as I can hear the cleaning crew. And literally all I did was I got done editing videos. I went up, showered, changed, and got in at that time a taxi to get to Hartford to get to the airport.
Yep. Hey,
for a 6 a.m. flight.
Gotta grind, bro. Gotta grind.
Yeah, those are the grinds of MMA reporters on Fight Night. Let's move over. Next up, we got Sergey taking on Rulian 7,700. Sergey 8,500. What's your take, Pete?
I feel like this is a must-have fight. Truthfully, like you have the favorite in Sergey Morozov sitting there at 8,500, and now you have the underdog in Julian Paiva sitting there at 7,700. Both of these fighters have not had the most success of late. And Julian Paiva is always in a close fight. He just most recently got knocked out against Sean O'Malley. He was getting destroyed against Kyler Phillips, and then somehow withstood that adversity and ended up coming from behind and getting a majority decision over Kyler Phillips, who I hold in such high regard. A very close fight against Giagos Magny. Nice finish over Mark De La Rosa. And then an unfortunate, cut stoppage against Rogerio Bontorin. So like seeing Julian Paiva as an underdog really intrigued me, because there were some people saying that Julian Paiva was going to they could have just been talking, but saying that, he could possibly, spoil Sean O'Malley's career and get a victory over him. I did not think that at all. And I really like Sean O'Malley in the matchup. Now, Sergey Morozov was a favorite against Douglas De Silva Andrade, where like a lot of people really like getting to him. They liked Douglas Silva de Andrade a lot because of, they liked Morozov in that matchup against de Andrade because of the takedown potential. And Andrade looks like a guy who is super dangerous, but can get completely out wrestled and just tax that gas tank. And you did see the skills of Morozov early on. It's just in the second round, he got caught with some shots and got knocked out. He got knocked down twice, and then he got submitted against De Andrade. So it's tough for me to see him at 8,500 and have a ton of faith in him, because in his debut, he got submitted against Umar Nurmagomedov, got a nice decision win against Khalid Taha, and then most recently knocked down twice and then submitted against Douglas Silva de Andrade. I'm favoring the underdog Julian Paiva ever so slightly, but this is a group if I've ever seen it. This is where I'm going to go on Fantasy Cruncher, use that tool over on Stokastic, and put Sergey Morozov and Julian Paiva in a group. And I feel like it's going to be a part of the optimal lineup. They both bring it, and they both have question marks surrounding their skill sets. Julian Paiva can get controlled on the mat. And Morozov has some really, really good takedowns. So we've seen Paiva work back to his feet, but get planted over and over. So it's a lean towards Paiva, but truthfully, I view this like the Alain Baudot, Josh Parisian one.
Literally, as you were saying that was my first thought, is I know what two fights to group together over there on Fantasy Cruncher. Now, do you want to earn money promoting the Stokastic products? Join our new affiliate program, become a Stokastic partner, and get paid every time someone makes a purchase using your personal link. Any new member that you refer will receive 20% of that member's first 2 Stokastic payments. Refer your friends, share it on social media, or do whatever else you have to get people signed up. You'll get 20% of a new member's first 2 payments guaranteed if it's done through your personal link. For more information, visit stokastic.com/affiliate-program or follow the link in the description below. Join, promote, profit with the Stokastic affiliate program. Of course, you got to check out all the great tools we have over at stokastic.com. And when we talk about our MMA product over there, of course, you've got the top fire tool ownership. We got UFC pro plays. I'll be putting my pro plays in here later on today. As I always say, I like to hear what Pete has to say about the fights. Maybe see if he sees things a little bit differently. And I'm really interested on what your take is on this next matchup. JP Buys and Cody Durden. This is your 8,000, 8,200 fight. JP Buys 8,200, 8,000 for Cody Durden. Now, Cody Durden has made a transition down to the American Top Team gym in Coconut Creek. He was training at the one there in the Atlanta area. He's trained at a couple of different gyms here, but when you think about both these guys, Pete, I'm thinking about the wrestling, and what scares me about Cody Durden is the cardio. I mean, the guy he puts on a tremendous pace in the first round and he just wides off. I think JP Buys is a better wrestler. He's got the better credentials.
I will tell you that there are red flags surrounding both of them, and I agree with you. I think that JP Buys is in an interesting matchup here because a lot of people just remember how the Montel Jackson fight ended. They don't really necessarily remember how it began. And he had Montel Jackson in a really bad spot, had his back and almost sunk in a rear naked choke. And the one thing I could take from that matchup, despite getting dropped numerous times, 4 if I remember correctly, is just his will to win and him not quitting. Like, despite getting dropped 4 times, that's a big, big red flag. He constantly worked. He sat there and he kept level changing or scrambling, trying to initiate the clinch. And it led to him not taking too much damage as the fight went on. And he ended up surviving and lost the decision. I will say that in a matchup against Cody Durden, I don't necessarily worry about Durden striking. Durden just got, destroyed against Muhammad Mukayev pretty early in a submission. And I think that there's more red flags surrounding Cody Durden. He isn't the smartest fighter in the world. So his fight IQ, especially in the grappling department, is lacking. His cardio is a liability. And I feel like his wrestling is not going to be superior in a matchup like this. I think that JP Buys, his submission attempts and his wrestling is going to be enough here at 8,200. He attempted a ton of submissions against Montel Jackson. He attempted 3 of them and nearly had a guillotine, nearly had a rear naked choke, nearly had another guillotine. I think that he submits Cody Durden. If Durden, overextends himself on a shot and gets a little lazy on the mat, JP Buys, despite having 0 success in the UFC, is a guy that I'm okay with getting to. And I know that's super, super crazy because of how many times he was knocked down. And then in his prior matchup, he was knocked out against Bruno Silva. So how is that chin? Totally get it. Cody Durden is not a big knockout guy. He's a wrestler. He likes to control you and work towards a finish on the mat. I don't see that happening. So I'm going to be picking JP Buys at 8,200.
Yeah, look, we talk about volatility of where they're at in this division. To me, this is just like a Parisian and Baudot. I mean, Baudot's a low-level heavyweight fight. To me, this is the lower end of the UFC division here in this one between JP and Cody. And let's just be honest about it. Overall, the fans hate both these guys. So maybe we can find a little bit of leverage on this one. Next up, we got a bantamweight matchup. Mario Bautista taking on Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher returning to the 135-pound division. He is 7,500 on DraftKings, 8,700 for Mario Bautista. Already mentioned about the fact that I like that over significant strikes from Mario Bautista over there on Prize Picks. Does have a little bit of a reach advantage in this one. Lands over 5 strikes per minute. I just think that the MMA Lab team here with Mario Bautista, they're going to have him just basically have it range and not potentially engage in any type of grappling with Brian Kelleher.
Yeah, because I'm interested to see how the grappling exchanges would go. I think this is a super competitive fight, and the salaries are accurate in my opinion. I think that Mario Bautista should be the favorite. At 8,700, I'm okay with getting to it a little bit, just because of if the weight cut's a little bit too much for Brian Kelleher at this stage of the game. And, we always talk about if people have horrible weight cuts and they get hit a lot throughout their careers in general, perhaps their chins are going to be, tested in one matchup and they could end up getting finished. Man, I'm foreseeing this going the distance on the feet, being a striking matchup and just being a great bantamweight fight, like an old school bantamweight banger. 3 rounds, both guys having moments, but Mario Bautista just having the volume edge and the work rate edge. Brian Kelleher has the power, despite not throwing such athletic moves, whereas Bautista will be throwing flying knees and looking for the finish. Brian Kelleher has that death touch a little bit about this bantamweight division. So he's going to be, worthy of a sprinkle and worthy of getting to some exposure sitting there at 7,500. He has excellent submission skills. So if he touches Bautista on the feet and Bautista instinctively shoots, Kelleher's live to guillotine anybody. I'm telling you right now, he's live to guillotine anybody, and he has power to shut the lights off against anybody, as well as he did against Hunter Azure. And the Bautista defeat to Trevin Jones, we know that Trevin Jones hits really hard. That's his one pathway to victory usually. And Bautista ended up getting caught and slept with a punch from an odd angle that he didn't see coming. If you told me Kelleher knocks out Bautista, it wouldn't necessarily blow my mind, but the better fighter over 15 minutes, I believe, is going to be Bautista. So that's why I'm picking him.
Yeah, I like Bautista in this spot as well. And then our opening fight of the night is going to be Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Jinyu Frey. Jinyu Frey with a 6-inch reach advantage in this one. She's 9,200 over on DraftKings, 7,000 for Demopoulos. I mean, look, you want to talk about every week we're looking at these 9,000 fighters and we're going, who is going to be the fighter that no one is going to be getting to? Jinyu Frey may be that fighter this week. Now, look, do I really want to get there? No. Do I really want to get to the Demopoulos side of this equation? No. So I talked to Vanessa about 2.5 weeks ago. I tried to get her to talk about this fight. She gave me that. She didn't give me much, Pete.
I tell you what, man, I hate the price tag and I hate the odds. Jinyu Frey sitting there at like a 3-1 favorite is crazy to me, just because her fight IQ is so suspect and her striking skills are extremely superior to Vanessa Demopoulos, who at times just walks forward and absorbs tons of shots. Jinyu Frey, time and time again, though, will look to implement wrestling and close the distance and chain together a takedown or two. And, she attempted 1 against Ashley Yoder, 3 against Gloria De Paula, 4 against Loma Lukbunmi. And I feel like she could be playing with fire here, because if she does get a little too confident in her wrestling, or she looks to solidify a close round on the feet and she goes to take down Vanessa Demopoulos. Demopoulos was just awarded her black belt, and she is a fighter out of Fight Ready, who we have to say, like, she's probably one of the lowest level fighters out of Fight Ready, but she's still surrounded by extreme talent. And it's like, I think that Vanessa Demopoulos is extremely live to pull off another submission win. And she got dropped against Silvana Gomez Juarez and still completely rocked, snatched up a beautiful, beautiful submission and scored 91 fantasy points. So I don't love her skill set. I don't think that she has the wrestling to get it to the mat. But if Jinyu Frey implements wrestling, she could be out scrambled by Vanessa Demopoulos, truthfully. And her fight IQ has shown that she's not just going to stand and bang as she should. Just let her hands and her kickboxing fly, and she would win this matchup. I'm nervous about the odds, and I'm nervous about the salary. So I'm going to be getting to Vanessa Demopoulos at that 7,000 price tag.
I mean, look, Vanessa has not scored a takedown during her time in the UFC. I mean, look, if I'm Jinyu Frey and I'm her corner, I mean, unless you drop her with strikes, I'm kind of sitting there going, why engage in the grappling? Because that is Vanessa Demopoulos' path to win it. We were talking about this earlier, that the easy path to victory. The path to victory for Vanessa Demopoulos is to get this fight to the ground and make it a grappling matchup. So if I'm Jinyu Frey, why get down there? What concerns me about the price point with Jinyu Frey, I like Jinyu Frey to win this fight, is paying off that $9,200 price tag if you don't get a win by stoppage and you don't utilize grappling. Right. I don't see how you can be optimal at that price point.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with you. And unless she knocks down Demopoulos and gets a finish, I don't really see the 9,200 paying off. I'll get to some of it because on the feet, she's the better fighter. She, in her most recent fight against Ashley Yoder, threw 185 significant strikes. In Vanessa Demopoulos' decision defeat to JJ Aldrich, she threw 162. So, and she attempted 5 takedowns. So Demopoulos will attempt takedowns. But what I could see happening is Demopoulos robotically coming forward, throwing crazy combinations and just, trying to implement the clinch, and Jinyu Frey being opportunistic, changing levels and getting a takedown just because it's there. And then Demopoulos in the back of her head, Jason, she's happy. She's like, okay, thank you. Now you got it in my world. Now I can work for a sweep. I can work towards, threatening you with a submission. And so I'm going to be leaning towards the underdog just because the line seems a little bit too off. And they're both completely low-level fighters for the strawweight division. But Demopoulos is 7,000, armbar from guard, as Josh says in chat, completely viable.
Oh, yeah. Armbar from guard for MMA, you always know is potentially a way it could end it. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button, which, of course, I always appreciate that. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Stokastic right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a video is live here on the channel. Of course, coming up here at 6 p.m. Eastern time, we got MLB live before lock. But before we wrap up the show, let's get right into our straight up fight picks. The main event, I will go with the favorite in Arman Tsarukyan.
I'm going to go Tsarukyan.
Next up in the co-main event, give me Rakhmonov.
Shavkat Rakhmonov.
In the heavyweight matchup, we mentioned about high volatility. I will go with Josh Parisian.
I'm going with the under 2.5. Jason, I have to pick somebody?
You do have to pick somebody, yes.
Oh, God.
There's people out there to keep track of this.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to go Alain Baudot just because you went Josh Parisian, but it's literally like a 51-49 for me.
I always appreciate when I see that tweet when it's advantage Jason, not advantage Pete. I will go Thiago Moises against Christos Giagos.
I'm going to go Thiago as well.
Give me Umar against Maness.
Umar. Yep, Umar.
I would go Curtis over Vieira.
Curtis.
I think we're going to disagree on this one.
Yep.
Give me Ulberg.
Give me Nchukwi.
Then I'll go TJ Brown.
TJ Brown.
I'll go Paiva.
I'm going to go Paiva as well.
Give me Bays.
JP Bays.
I will go Bautista.
Bautista.
And I will go Frey.
For the sake of being different, I'm going to go Demopoulos.
Oof, yeah. I mean, look, I will say this, just looking at over our top fire tool, there is some interesting leverage plays this week. Some very interesting leverage plays this week.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about, man. Like getting exposure to the right people and having the correct combinations and targeting the fighters within your groups. Best way to succeed in MMA DFS.
Yeah. I mean, like looking at these fights that I believe we have to target this week. And look, some of these fights you don't love to target because of the volatility with them. We mentioned about Parisian Baudot. That's a fight in terms of GPPs, tough to get away from. I would say Curtis and Vieira is another one, tough to get away from. Bays and Durden is another one.
Yeah, and the Morozov Paiva one too. I mean, that mid-range price tag.
This is one of those cards that I really feel you got to go on a fancy crunch. You got to create some certain groups. You look at, but like we always talk about punt plays every week. I think there's some decent punt plays here this week. You mentioned about Vanessa Demopoulos. Yeah. If the fight can become a grappling matchup, that one is an interesting punt play to me. Christos Giagos, just because of, if he's going to win that fight, he would win that fight via stoppage within like 7 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, there's good punt plays everywhere. And a lot of weeks we're hurting for underdogs. This one, like, it's fine to have a bunch of dart throws that you don't feel confident in and just mixing and matching. And playing single entry is always difficult. It really is for MMA DFS and much more tailored towards 20 max, 150 max.
Jeffrey mentioned he was waiting for Sam's usual questions. I guess he wanted that over under number. I'm gonna play a little guessing game here. I bet Sam's number would have been 5.5.
Oh, I'm saying over. Bro.
I'm trying to think what fights I think have a really high percentage of going the distance.
I think 5.5 is fair. I really do. But I think some weird I think some weird stuff is going to happen this fight card.
What, you think you're in the gym? You can just say whatever you want?
I'm used to being my own boss, man. That's weird.
Start yelling at people?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. But of course, I'll be back here on Saturday, myself and Greg, for Live Before Lock. Pete will be coaching one of his guys there. Can we get some live stream, Pete? I mean, can we get Pete mic'd up to hear what you sound like?
I wish.
Or is that NSFW?
No. I'll be yelling at my guys, but like, I don't know. I'm a very experienced cornerman, and I learned from the best, my pops. So the last time I was trying to stream something, my guy was doing a grappling match in a boxing ring, and he broke the boxing ring. So they broke the boxing ring twice, Jason. His match was delayed 15 minutes twice because he put the guy through the ropes, then they fixed it, and then he put the guy through the other rope. So the last time I tried to stream did not work well.
So you're saying it's not good for you to stream things?
Yeah. So we need Bree on hand just to stream it for everybody.
Oh, wow, that's too good. But good luck to your guy Wolfie there on Saturday. Of course, I will be here on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Huge thanks to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Be sure to check them out. Use that promo code AWESEMO as they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Take advantage of those props they have over here for UFC Vegas number 57. That is going to do it for this edition of the Strategy Show. I will talk to you on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Have a good day, everybody.